Yeah, pepperoni, sausage. Yeah, extra cheese. No, hold the pineapple. Okay, now you want to charge that to? Right, last name spelled D-E-A-P-O. Right, you got the credit card on file there? Terrific. 20 minutes. I'll be waiting. Thanks. Hi, welcome to Ask Tim, the insurance technical podcast brought to you by IIABNY. I'm your host, Tim Dodge. I'm coming to you today from the Center for Insurance Renewal Notifications here at the Geek Cave at IIABNY headquarters, where it's almost lunchtime. I wanted to spend a few minutes talking to you today because I've been getting some letters from IIABNY members about situations involving conditional renewal of commercial insurance policies. Now, personal lines policies have conditional renewal rules as well. I'm going to deal with them in a later episode of the Ask Tim podcast, but I thought because of the questions I've been getting, it's worth spending a few moments today talking about what exactly is required of an insurance carrier when they want to change something on renewal. From the phone calls and the emails I've been getting lately, it sounds to me like there might be some certainly some confusion on the parts of IIABNY members, and I suspect some confusion on the parts of insurance carrier underwriters as well. And this is not a knock on insurance company underwriters. I used to be one. I'll tell you what, the rules I'm going to relate to you are based on the New York State law. I never saw the text of that law until I started working here at IIABNY. When I was an underwriter, I had a cheat sheet that somebody put together. I suspect a lot of your underwriters are working with the same sort of sophisticated tools. So it's very possible that your underwriters have never actually even seen a copy of this law. So let's spend a few minutes talking about what the law is and what it says about conditional renewal notices. When we talk about this for commercial lines, for most commercial lines, I'm going to get back to that in a second, we're talking about New York Insurance Law Section 3426. And you can download the complete text of that law from the cancellations and non-renewals page in the research section of the IIABNY website. Now, a lot of people refer to that as Chapter 220 or Regulation 220. I've heard it called by various names. It was originally enacted as Chapter 220 of the laws of 1986, and that's how people got its name. How people have associated that name with it. Now, that law requires a carrier to provide advance notice of non-renewal to a commercial lines policyholder, and if they want to change something on renewal, to provide a notice of conditional renewal. This is exactly what the law says. A covered policy shall remain in full force and effect pursuant to the same terms, conditions, and rates, unless written notice is mailed or delivered by the insurer to the first named insured at the address shown on the policy and to such insured's authorized agent or broker, indicating the insurer's intention. Okay, so they've got to send a notice to the first named insured at the address shown on the policy. So if the insured has changed locations and not told anybody, then the insurer is only obligated to use the address they have on the policy, and they have to notify you, the agent or broker on the account. Now they have to indicate the insurer's intention, A, not to renew the policy, or to condition renewal upon change of limits, change in type of coverage, reduction of coverage, increased deductible, addition of an exclusion, or upon increased premiums in excess of 10% with some exceptions. So let's talk for a few minutes about what that means, because I've been getting questions about this. Starting with change of limits. The law says a carrier has to provide notice if they want to change the limits. I had a call from one member who said that the carrier felt that they didn't have to send a notice because they were raising the building limit on a commercial building, and therefore that was providing extra value to the insured, and therefore they didn't have to provide the notice. Well, and the carrier was referring to a different part of the law. I think you're going to see here from what I'm about to read you, though, that doesn't really apply here, because a different part of the law says that you can't raise the premium midterm unless that increase in premium is due to and commensurate with insured value added, which is what the carrier was arguing here, subsequent to issuance or the last renewal date, pursuant to the terms of the policy or at the insured's request. Okay, so what does this mean? A lot of commercial property policies have an inflation guard provision attached to it. It's actually built into the ISO building and personal property form. You activate it simply by checking a box on the deck page. So if the policy has inflation guard coverage that automatically increases the building coverage for inflation, then it's true the insurance carrier would not need to provide a conditional notice there because the policy requires that limit to go up. Along the same lines, if the insured says, hey, I think my building coverage is too low and I want to increase it by $500,000 or something like that, then there's no conditional renewal notice required there either. But if the carrier is unilaterally changing the limits, whether it's the general liability limits, the building limit, the limits on an auto liability policy, whenever that's done unilaterally, the carrier owes the insured a conditional renewal notice. Change in type of coverage. There was an insurance department opinion some years ago where they said, the department said that if a carrier was changing coverage from a BOP to a commercial package policy, that was a significant change in the type of coverage and therefore a conditional notice was needed. Reduction in coverage, that could be deleting an endorsement altogether. Maybe you had some optional fringe endorsement on there before, the carriers decided to remove that. They've got to send a notice advising you of that. Increase in deductible, that's fairly self-explanatory. Could be a major issue in some parts of New York that are exposed to, they have hurricane exposure. You could see windstorm deductibles being increased, and that's really what the law is talking about there. A new exclusion, perhaps something excluding coverage for labor law losses or some other, there's even some carriers have a medical payments exclusion that could be attached to the CGL policy. If the carrier wanted to add that, they'd have to provide a notice. Lastly, about premium increases, and there's a lot of conditions attached to this. If the premiums increased because the payroll has gone up, no notice needed. If the premium increased because the experience mod went up, no notice needed. If the policy is loss rated or retrospectively rated, or if audit has shown that the exposures have changed, the carrier does not have to provide a conditional renewal notice. It's only really when their rates have resulted in the premium going up by more than 10% that they owe a conditional renewal notice. I'm going to spend some more time on this topic in a future episode of Ask Tim, but for now I would direct you back to the cancellations and non-renewals page in the research section of the IIABNY website. You'll find links to the complete text of 3426, as I mentioned earlier, also to the personal lines law that I'll be discussing in a future episode. If you want to get in touch with me, as always, you can email me at tdodge@iabny.org. You can give me a call on the Geek line at 800-851-8853, extension 229. Drop a fax at 888-432-0510. Look for me on Twitter as Ask Tim. Look for me on AOL Instant Messenger as tdog4494. And if you happen to run into me at an IIABNY event or at a class or something like that, I always welcome your questions in those situations. I love meeting people face to face rather than just talking to you through this camcorder that JB is steering through right now. Thanks again for watching this episode of Ask Tim. We're going to be back soon with another episode on this same topic. And until then, if you want to know about pieces of paper, notices from insurance companies, and the way to write them, don't forget to Ask Tim.